Hello, thank you for joining us for our Redmond's Parks Art, Recreation, Culture, and Conservation Plan meeting. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining right on time. We do appreciate it. We will begin though at 6:35 just to allow for people to get settled and sort out any technology issues and let people just kind of come on in. So thanks for your patience. If you'd like to, we are using the question and answer feature tonight for comments and questions. If you'd like to introduce yourself and let us know where you're checking in from, you can put your name and the area that you are checking in from right in our Q&A feature. In order to do that, while you're waiting, all attendees are on mute. You can find the Q&A box. That's the way we will ask our questions. If you're dialing in by phone, you can participate during the discussion sessions by pressing *9 to raise your hand, and the administrator will then enable you to unmute. As people are still filing in, we're just letting everyone know that we're going to be starting soon, about 3 or 4 more minutes, just to let people settle in, check their technology, find the Q&A button. Please feel free to go ahead and put your name and where you're calling in from or checking in from, and the Q&A feature. That's what we'll be using to use for comments and questions tonight. Thanks, Dave from Mill Creek and Christina from downtown Redmond. Thanks for coming along and spending your evening with us. Thank you, City Council Person Kritzer. We're glad that you were able to join us tonight too. Stuart from Education Hill. Thanks for coming along tonight. We appreciate that. So once again, we're going to be using the Q&A feature. If anyone's calling in from phone, you could go ahead and hit *9. And then we'll be starting in just a minute. Steve, do you want to go to the next slide for me, please? If anyone is calling in and would like to use a language other than English, we do have some interpreters on our line. For people who are calling in, we have interpreters available for Mandarin, Russian, and Spanish. Please select the interpretation button below, represented by the globe icon. You will then be able to hear the presentation and still have access to the questions and answer feature. I think we can go ahead and get started. So Steve, next slide, please. So here is a look at tonight's agenda. We'll start with a brief presentation to share some information about Redmond's Parks and Recreation System. As I said, we'll be using the Q&A feature. We'll also be using live polling questions during the presentation to get your feedback. And you could put any of your questions, comments in that Q&A feature. We'll end the meeting with some information about next steps for the project and how you can stay involved. As a reminder, we are conducting this meeting in 3 other languages, so presenters will occasionally pause to give time for the interpreters to catch up. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for documentation, and we'll also be posting it on PARCC. I'd like now to turn the meeting over to Angela Burney, Mayor of the City of Redmond, who I know is very excited to hear everyone's input. You're on mute.
So patiently waiting. Good evening. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to contribute to the future of Redmond's Parks and Recreation. Before I was a council member and then became mayor, I was a volunteer with Redmond's Parks and Trails Commission and was involved in the last update of the Parks, Arts, Recreation, Culture, and Conservation Plan, or PARCC Plan. This plan guides the work of our Parks and Recreation staff. The types of park projects that are funded start as ideas in the park plan. For example, after the last park plan update, the city completed the Redmond pool upgrades, opened the Redmond Community Center at Marymore Village, and renovated Westside Park to include more year-round accessible activities. Your feedback tonight will help inform what those next projects will be, from the types of programs we offer to the events we put on. I'm very excited that by the time we update this plan again, we'll have a brand new senior and community center. The groundbreaking will be held at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning at the municipal campus, so I hope to see you there. Thank you again for participating. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Now I'd like to introduce Redmond's Parks and Recreation Director, Laureen Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. As director, I get to see firsthand how dedicated our Parks and Recreation staff is to our vision of building community through our parks, arts, recreation, and conservation offerings. We do that by putting on great events like Derby Days, offering innovative recreation services like pivoting to online classes or curbside senior lunches during COVID, and using eco-friendly best practices in our park maintenance to support sustainability. Over the past 2 years, we've seen just how valuable our parks and open spaces are to community well-being. And tonight we want to hear from you on the types of programs we should prioritize and the amenities we should provide as we move forward. I look forward to hearing all of your great ideas this evening and your continued involvement in the park plan process going forward. With that, I'd like to introduce Caroline Chapman, our Senior Parks Planner, to get our meeting started. Caroline?
Great. Thank you, Director Hamilton. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start with a quick overview of what the park plan is and what topics it covers, also known as the Parks, Arts, Recreation, Culture, and Conservation Plan, which you've heard. Go ahead to the next slide. So the park plan is our 6-year guide for helping the city manage and improve its parks, recreation programs, and other recreation experiences like community events. The plan is going to look to the future and will identify specific projects and ideas to improve Redmond's parks and programs over the next 6 to 10 years. At its core, the park plan is really guided by a few basic questions. What are the city's strengths and key areas for improvements? How will Redmond meet our community recreation needs now and into the future? And finally, what should the city focus on for funding and projects? The park plan will not only help guide those future investments for the park system, but an updated plan is actually required to keep the city eligible for state and federal grants and also help leverage local resources. A lot's been accomplished since the previous plan was adopted in 2017, including the renovation of Westside Park, opening of the Marymore Village Community Center, development of the downtown park, and the completion of the second phase of the Redmond Central Connector Trail. So our city offers really amazing recreational activities and places that enhance the quality of life and livability in Redmond. The park plan will cover topics on the city's parks and open space, trails, and community centers. And the plan will also inform how we provide for recreation programs, arts and culture, community events. Parks and recreation offer great ways to be active and feel connected to our Redmond community. So let's talk about that system that we have today. City parks give you access to the outdoors with over 1,300 acres of parkland and 47 city-operated parks. Redmond's park system offers a variety of places to explore, from quiet walks in the woods, playgrounds and sports fields, picnic areas, space to garden, and places to jump in the lake. The trails across our city are very popular. We have nearly 60 miles of trails and paths that connect the city and extend into parks and natural areas. There are some major trails like the Sammamish River Trail. It's actually owned and managed by King County. Our community centers bring together people of all ages for indoor recreation, classes, swimming, and social time. From teens to adults to seniors, these centers see over 20,000 hours of usage in a typical year. And as Mayor Bernie noted, we will have a new senior and community center opening in 2024 with the groundbreaking to start construction happening tomorrow morning. Our recreation programs, arts, and cultural events bind the community together and help highlight the diversity of Redmond. We have over 50,000 attendees take part in city events in a typical year, and the city hosts hundreds of summer camps and sport teams annually. We have unique programming, includes the Animal Farm, Horse Arena, camps, and other activities at Farrell McWhirter Park. Also, the city works to expand opportunities for art and culture, ranging from public art installations, performances, poetry, and art studio space. Planning for the future requires us to respond to the development of Redmond's urban centers and provide spaces for people to play and gather. Increasing growth is going to put more pressure on our existing parks and natural areas, so we will need to pay attention to ongoing maintenance, stewardship, and caring for what we have. Going forward, we also want to make sure that the park system and recreation programs are welcoming for all users, whether that is through inclusive play areas or providing access in other languages, as we're doing during this meeting. So tonight, we're really looking for your thoughts on future investments to the park and recreation system, to make sure that the park plan addresses your priorities for our changing community. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Steve Dew, one of the consultants on our project team.
Thank you, Caroline, and good evening to everyone. I just want to offer a quick snapshot of the remainder of the meeting. Tonight's feedback will add to the information we've already gathered from the community survey that was closed a couple of weeks ago and builds on conversations with the city's Parks and Trails Commission. At this stage in the park plan process, we're still collecting ideas from the community, and tonight is about hearing more from you through Zoom polling and Q&A times. Tonight is not a decision-making meeting, and at the end of the meeting, we'll share other ways to stay involved in the project. So with the Zoom format we're using, we'll use instant polls, and we've set up a practice poll to get you familiar with how it works. To be clear, this is just a practice. This question will not become part of the new park plan. And just as practice, let's give it a try. So as poll questions appear later in the presentation tonight, you'll be familiar with it. So I'll read the question and the choices, and then another window will pop up on your screen with these choices. So make your selection and then hit submit. So the question is, which of the following would be the hardest to live without? Chocolate, music, ice cream, your favorite drink, or your phone? And here again are the choices, this time in all 4 languages, and you should see a pop-up window. So feel free to start entering your response. If the poll covers a portion of your screen, feel free to drag it to the side of your computer. And again, apologies for attendees using a phone. We're unable to provide the poll over the phone, but let us know your thoughts during the question and answer session on the Q&A function. So we'll give it a little bit more, and it looks like everyone's responded, so you should see the responses on screen. So it's a close tie between music and your phone. So we've got about a third of folks who say music is the one thing they can't live without, and close second is your phone. So Again, it's great to just practice and see how this works so we understand its function. And we'll just move forward with the meeting. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, the city recently conducted a community survey to help inform this park plan update. It was launched in late March and was closed just a couple of weeks ago. In an effort to reach out to all of Redmond, the survey was available in 4 languages. Tonight, we want to share a little about what we've heard from the community. We've had a tremendous feedback and collected just over 1,200 responses from the community survey. And here are some highlights. 1, park usage is really strong. The people visit local parks often, with 88% saying they visit at least a couple of times per month. Also, nearly 3/4 of respondents said the condition of the city's parks and trails are either excellent or good. The top reasons people visit Redmond's parks is for trails for walking, running, biking, and also for relaxation. Visiting for playgrounds, wildlife viewing, picnicking, and public art installations or events is also very popular. Some of the priorities noted so far include improving trail connections and adding off-leash dog areas and community gardens. Other high-need amenities include a pool or swim beach, more pickleball courts, and additional public art, performances, and events. Based on what we've heard from the community so far, top priorities for park system improvements include maintaining and caring for existing parks and making sure that existing park amenities last longer, expanding trail opportunities and finding ways to improve trail connections, and upgrading existing parks and adding new amenities to provide more choices for recreation. As Caroline mentioned earlier, as Redmond grows, the city will need to pay attention to growth in the urban centers and also balance the overall community's needs for active park space, for playgrounds, sports, and gatherings, with conservation of open space to protect and enhance those wonderful quiet places for people and for wildlife. The city owns several undeveloped properties as future parks, and opportunities exist to add new park features for play, sport, fitness, or relaxation in existing properties. A wide array of amenities exist today, from sport fields and courts, to walking, running, and biking trails, to playgrounds and plazas. And there are spaces for picnics and gatherings, access to the lake and river, as well as natural areas that have been improved through community-based restoration efforts. Now we're going to do our first live polling question. And again, as a reminder, we'll read the question aloud for the group and then show the set of possible responses in all 4 languages so everyone can participate. And at this point, I'll ask Jeff Aiken, a senior park planner at the city, to help walk us through it. Jeff?
Thanks, Steve. All right, let's dive into our first question. Balancing the recreation needs of a growing city may require trade-offs. What features do you think are the most important to consider when building and expanding our park system? Reading those: conserve land as natural areas, urban plazas in downtown and Overlake, space for artistic performances or art, places for exercise, covered areas for picnics or recreation, indoor recreation spaces such as community centers, flexible outdoor space such as lawns and open space to play games, and areas for sports fields and courts. And please select 2 few more seconds to mark your answers down. A pretty amazing park system that does have these natural areas and urban spaces and sport courts. And so getting your feedback on what you'd like to see more of or what we need is great. It looks like conservation right up there is one of the top ones. Scrolling down, let's see. Then flexible outdoor space, can gather on or play different games. Then arts and urban plazas, I think, are the next, if I'm tracking. We have a lot at about 23%. Also covered areas, indoor recreation spaces.
Thanks, Jeff, for going through that first poll. We'll do several more during the evening here. So again, it's great to get practice. And just moving into the notion of trails, as I noted earlier, walking, running, and biking are top activities. And having access to more or expanded trails is a high priority based on the survey results. And trails in Redmond come in different forms. They could be within parks or open spaces. They could link destinations like the Sammamish River or Watershed Preserve. And they could be part of the road system for including bike lanes and sidewalks. And providing safe routes with signage and maps is also important. And Jeff will read another polling question, this time related to trails. I'm sorry, Tammy Lee.
Trails have really been.
And I'm on mute. It's okay. So we would love to talk to you more and find out more of your thoughts around the parks and trails specifically. What are some of the, and please use the Q&A feature to let us know your thoughts. What's working well with the Redmond trail system? What could we be doing better? And what's maybe a new idea for the trail system? What would you like to see connected? Please type some thoughts that you might have on the trail system in the Q&A feature. To answer, Pam, to answer your question, these polls that we're taking are not the survey. The survey had been sent out and was available electronic and was quite long. These are just polls for conversation and to get a little bit more insight during this meeting. So please feel free to take the polls during the meeting. But meanwhile, if anyone has any thoughts on trails and connector paths and within Redmond, what would you like to see? Are there specific areas that maybe you'd like to see connected? Are there places that you'd like to see some improvements? Are there ideas along the trail that you would like to see? I'm not seeing any activity in the chat. So I'm going to go with, go ahead.
TL, there's actually a few comments here.
Oh, I'm not
the
seeing
first
them.
is
Okay.
to separate walkers going slowly from high-speed bicycles. And it looks like that is similar to another comment about enforcing speed limits on the bike trails. Then Justin had said more protected bike lanes connecting the trail to primary destinations would be nice.
You know, thank you, Carolyn. I was clicked on the wrong tab.
Okay.
So I got it now. Great. Yeah, the senior center could have 3-wheel low height bicycle available for people to use for a short amount of time. And the comment of there's a good balance between nature trails and developed trails. Recognize and improve the trail system between Knight Park and Perigo Heights on Education Hill. A couple of these are getting some upvoted, specifically around separate the walkers who are going slowly from high-speed bicycles. Related with enforced speeds is also getting upvoted. Recognize and improve the trail system, more connections. And Pam says, I'd love to set aside places behind City Hall with benches like that elsewhere with intermittent tables and benches. This is all really great input. Thank you. Why is there not a bike lane on Red Way? Caroline, did you want to, is there anything that you'd like to say about that?
I can check in, Eric, with our transportation staff, unless Jeff, do you know anything about Redmond Way bike lanes?
I do not. I know part of Redmond Way is, I believe, 202, so I'm not sure if the state controls pieces. And then Cleveland was seen as a slower, more comfortable bike access through downtown. But that's a good comment. We can bring it to our transportation planning folks.
Right, and I guess parallel to the Redmond Central Connector as well, so.
And Justin is curious as if you are drawing inspiration from any other cities or countries.
Yeah, I think we have both, like with our transportation partners who do some of the on-street bike facilities. Those aren't in parks, but the NACTO guide and looking at more protected bike lanes and separated bike lanes on those. And then parks really looking at how we can both create trails within the parks, and we see lots of cities that have good examples, and then also connecting a linked linking our parks via trails. So I think the classic example there is, Olmsted Parks and in Seattle are many communities that have those boulevards and connections between parks.
And another comment I'd like to address or call out is from Jesse. He says, all in all, I do enjoy the trail system, but many areas are taken over by invasive species like yellow iris and English ivy, species which King County has listed as harmful to the environment. Are there plans to keep this more under control?
That's great feedback, Jamie, and that really fits in well with our conservation C on the park plan. We can work with our natural resources team. I know they do work closely with King County.
So thank you all for that input. These comments will be captured, so thank you for putting them in the Q&A feature. Do want to point out, Lizette mentions to continue the connection to other trails, that there could be some wayfinding and some historical information relative to Redmond's history. Okay, so maybe some signage along the paths would be along with rules and other features like ping pong tables and such. So thank you for all that, and we will be capturing these to record in our documentation. I think with that, see, we can go on to our next slide.
Great. So now turning to recreation programs, arts, and events. The city of Redmond provides a variety of health and wellness and lifelong learning programs, in addition to community events, performances, and visual and literary arts. With 5 community centers and a 6th starting construction tomorrow, indoor spaces provide for year-round recreation classes and programs. Preschool, after-school, and summer camps offer activities for youth to learn about animals and nature, arts and crafts, sports, and more. The community survey provides other information to consider. When asked about recreation programming and activity needs, there was a strong interest in additional pool programs, including swim lessons, family swim time, and lap swimming. Other areas of need include expanding community gardens and additional adult programs, classes, and activities. However, one big takeaway from the survey was that a majority of the 1,200 respondents said that they were not aware of recreation program options offered by the city. This leads us into the next survey or polling question, and this one's for Jeff.
Thanks, Steve. So yes, we'd like to understand how you learn about events or would like to learn about events. So from the community survey, over 51% of respondents said that they were not aware of city programs, events, or parks. How would you prefer to learn about Redmond's programs, events, or parks so the city can better communicate with you and your families? Via the city website, a city e-news or direct email. Focus on Redmond, which is the city's quarterly newsletter that arrives at your house. The recreation activity guide through social media such as Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Direct mail about upcoming events. Through the Redmond Reporter, the weekly online paper. Via programs, posters, or flyers around town. And lastly, use the Q&A function if you have other ideas on ways to get the word out about programs.
Actually, it looks like any response that you have is going to be done through the Q&A for this question. So you can pop back to that like we had done for the trails discussion. Type in the number or the source of your preferred communication methods, or if there's another option that we've left off that we should know about.
I'm seeing lots for number 1. See several for number 2. So city e-news and direct mail, city website, social media, city news and direct mail, and direct mail, direct email. Focus on Redmond quarterly newsletter. City posters and texts. And I think that is about it. Pam's got the idea that a barcode restaurants used for menu, placed on doors or groceries, library, public use. So QR codes around town would be a good idea. Great. Well, thank you for that input, and apologies for not having that poll available for pressing. I think we can go ahead and move on to the next slide, Steve.
Great. Community events, art exhibits, performances, and cultural activities encourage the community to come together. And in addition to public art collections the city has, the city hosts performing arts, literary arts, and more. From large signature events like Derby Days to concerts in the park, the city of Redmond strives to balance large and small events and highlight Redmond's diversity. And here's another poll about events. And Jeff,
Thanks, Steve. We'll use the Q&A, I believe, again for this one.
No.
Nope.
No, we can, yeah, this one's programmed. I missed the
Oh.
last one, so I apologize for that, but the rest of them should be fine.
Right. So ignore that. The answers will pop up. What events would you be interested in seeing the City of Redmond's Parks and Recreation Department produce more of? Performances in outdoor spaces and parks, citywide festivals like Derby Days or Redmond Lights, community block parties, small events and activities at our neighborhood parks, or other. And for the other, you can use the Q&A function. Thanks.
An event season is getting underway. We had Cinco de Mayo, the AAPI Fest, was it last weekend? This weekend on Saturday is Color Fest at City Hall. And I see our staff members working hard on Derby Days, which is coming up July 8th and 9th. So it's nice that these will be back in person. And we will be there talking about the park plan. So come and say hi. Send your friends.
Do feel
Right.
free to use the Q&A function if you see, if you think of some other events that haven't been mentioned.
Looks like, yeah, interest in those smaller events and activities at our neighborhood parks is something people would like to see, along with the larger performances in outdoor spaces.
Great, Steve, I think we can move on to the next question. Jeff?
Yes. What would you like to see more of from our cultural arts programs? If you can select one of these, temporary visual arts. So those could be seasonal art installations, permanent visual arts, things like sculptures, murals, or mosaics in the community, performing arts such as dance, music, or theater performances, literary arts such as poetry or creative writing, or zine fairs, film screenings, hands-on activities where you could learn different skills through workshops and classes, and then artist resources, training programs, and makerspace. And please choose one.
And while you're voting, there's a couple of comments. One concern is that some events are being used for political purposes, specifically with respect to controversial foreign policy topics. Also, some cultures are being centered while others are ignored. So thanks for that feedback, Linda, and we will definitely capture that for consideration. And we've got a shout out for a first time event this past Saturday that Pam found well done. Thank you, Pam, for that. We love utilizing parks for events, maybe a movie night, either Grass Lawn or Perigo Park, maybe rotate the movies to neighborhood gathering spaces too.
Oh, interesting.
And then in addition to this question, I would like to see less politicization of arts events for foreign policy advocacy. Thanks again, Linda. We will make sure that we capture this feedback.
It looks like we have our results posted up, but seasonal arts or events, so temporary visual arts were the top vote getter, then followed by resources for artists, and then things in the permanent arts collection, such as sculptures and murals.
We've got a vote for 5 and 7 in the chat.
Great. That was film screenings and artist resources. If you don't have your numbers in front of you. see, should we jump to the next slide, Steve? Right, another poll. So as you heard from the mayor, Redmond will be opening a new senior and community center in addition to the existing centers, which are the old Firehouse Teen Center, the Redmond Pool, the Art Studio, Old Redmond Schoolhouse Community Center, and the Marymore Village Community Center. What types of programs would you like to see at these different community center spaces? So your choices are, we'd like to select 2 and drop-in times for games or sports, hobbies, music, or art space, get to know neighbor events, so social events, nutrition and cooking or healthy lifestyle resources, lectures and educational meetings, exercise classes, organized sports for youth or adults, community events and performances, or spaces that the community can rent, so community rental spaces. As a reminder, please select 2.
I got an email this morning from Redmond Parks and Rec, and it sounds like there's some new drop-in times for preschool age kids going on at the Marymore Community Center. So that's cool to see. And thinking the Teen Center just did a few new life skills kind of classes, which I want to go to and learn how to fix my car, even if I'm not a teen anymore.
Yeah, it's nice to have the centers opening back up and have those programs online for the community.
Absolutely.
Eric says that's cool.
They've said I can go, but I'm sure you could too.
So my quick scan looks like hobby, music, and art space was one of the top choices that people would like to see in the community centers. Get to know neighbor events, so just having places where the community gather and socialize. Also, drop-in times for games or sports where you can just stop over and play for a little bit.
There's a great comment, an important comment in the chat. One concern is that Marymore membership dues are unaffordable for many seniors and others. Low cost is important so that people are not excluded. So thanks for that, Linda. We will capture that in our comments and make sure that that's considered going forward.
Yeah, that's a great point and something we've been concerned with. So thanks for noting that, Linda.
Great, we can go ahead and next slide, Steve. Great. So this next is also a Q&A. Drop in your comments here. We'd love to hear some ideas that you have for Redmond and Parks system. Even though this slide says a big idea, sometimes small ideas are big too, right? So especially in our neighborhood parks. Is there anything that you would like to see Redmond Parks doing that they're not doing so far? Do you have an idea that you'd like to share, that you'd like the Parks team to consider? Please give us your ideas. More trees along the bare areas, along the SRT. Heated walking and therapy pool for seniors and persons with disabilities, like the one at Bellevue Aquatic Center.
It's good. Assume the SRT was Sammamish River Trail, Justin?
Yep.
And we have heard, Linda, community desire for not just what the Redmond pool offers, but having more of those therapy pools and zero entry pools and things like that. Having those opportunities in the community.
And when we're talking about ideas, it doesn't just have to be physical spaces. We can talk about what types of programming, performing arts, network of connected parks, environmental education, any types of activities that you would like to see Parks and Rec promoting for you.
Yes, interim uses is another idea that we've talked about implementing.
You've got undeveloped Sammamish Valley Park along RCC 3 would be an opportune place to develop a pickleball complex. Pickleball complex. I just like saying that.
Yeah.
Less politics in the Arts Commission. Thanks, Linda. A designated center for the display of visual and performative arts, similar to the Valley View Arts Museum. Large ADA fully accessible treehouse that could accommodate nature classes and camped out in trees.
I like that.
Sounds
Get
like
some
fun.
pickleball complexes, and ADA tree houses, and performing arts. I like it.
More trees, everyone. More trees are great. And some previous comments that I hadn't said out loud yet is just overall for improving walkability and bikeability, more connections, more interim trails until final development funds are available, more protected bike lanes and sidewalks. Shelley says more diversity of amenities for adults and young adults, clustered pickleball courts with lights, Shakespeare in the Park, and other free performances at parks.
Great.
An annual event where local amateur artists can show their creations like a street fair. A fun idea. Thanks, Pam. Another vote for yes for more on Shakespeare in the parks.
I'll highlight there was an earlier comment about more light in the downtown park and flowers for color.
And there was an earlier comment also about just generally maintenance for the bikeways. Well, these are all great ideas, and they will, like all the other comments and questions, be captured and included for consideration as we move forward with the park plan. If you do have any other ideas and would like to, if you haven't thought of something right now, but you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're like, hey, I've got this great idea, because I do that sometimes, you can feel free to email us. On the last slide, we'll have some email information that you can contact us with. Lizette's getting a last minute answer in there of music night at Grass Lawn Dome. Lights would be helpful for Grass Lawn Dome. Some bird watching and nature identification walk and talks, maybe partner with the local Audubon, more on pickleball nets at the other tennis parks. And Pam says handrails on the stairs, even though there's a few stairs, it's a safety issue. Great. And another yes on the Audubon program. So lots of bird watchers out there. Great. Downtown park specifically from Pam. Is that for the handrails, Pam? Yep, great. So more handrails in downtown park would be useful. Great, next slide, Steve. So if you do have some more thoughts that you'd like to share, please feel to either put anything else in the Q&A section now. You could always visit our city website, watch for the park plan info at community events. We will be having a second public meeting later in the summer. And of course, there's ongoing discussions with the Parks and Trail Commission. You can visit our Let's Connect for updates and ways to stay involved. We'll be, as I said, planning something on a second public meeting, either late summer or very early fall, when we'll share what we've learned from these comments as well as from the survey and share a draft plan. Please make sure to check the website and keep an eye on social media for the meeting date. And you could always email the Redmond team at this email here, which is Caroline. Give us a wave, Caroline.
Yeah, I'll just say thank you again for coming this evening. As Tammy Lee mentioned, we have more outreach events planned, including one this Saturday at Colorfest at City Hall. Of course, there's Derby Days, and at the close of this meeting, you will be redirected to the Park Plan project page. So if there's any other comments or ideas you have, you can share them there or reach out to me at ckchapman@redmond.gov. That's my email right there. And really the best way to stay up to date on the park plan or other city news is to sign up for the City of Redmond e-news at redmond.gov. And while I have folks here, I'll just put in a quick plug for another big city project that is going on. The city is updating its comprehensive plan, which is our long-range plan that touches on parks, transportation, housing, and growth. That project is called Redmond 2050, and they are soliciting community feedback this summer and fall. You can find out more about that at redmond.gov/Redmond 2050. And we on the park side will be sharing your thoughts with that project for the parks element of that. So again, thank you for your time tonight. Your input is just so valuable as we move this project forward and to better understand your needs and the needs of you and your neighbors. So thank you again. And please, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A or send an email.
Yep.
But again, appreciate your participation.
And I do see a bunch more comments in the questions and answers. These will be captured. Thank you for Pam, who's relatively new and thinks that the parks are awesome as is. Always good to get some positive feedback there. And some ideas filtering in for some new events and some ideas for partnering with local schools and more on Shakespeare. So thank you for all of these comments. They will certainly be captured. Thanks for your time tonight. We really appreciate your participation.